what I really wanted to talk to you about, which is Carl. And I'm not talking about a guy named Carl. What is Carl?
Carl is the Cognitive AI Ranking Lab. The lab comes into play because we can manufacture data. We can actually prompt large language models across a wide variety of topics and begin analyzing that data.
I know we work in marketing, but...
Yeah, but we don't talk bullshit.
How we doing, people? This is To the Power of X. I'm Chuck. Today, I'm joined by Kayleigh and Will. How we doing, guys?
Good.
Good. How's it going?
It's going well with me. I'm glad it sounds like you had a little bit of a stressful morning, so hopefully this hangout will be a little bit calmer.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
Really
Cool.
good.
Well, today I wanted to mostly focus on kind of like where we're going in terms of the future of like marketing intelligence, which I know is a very large conversation. Mm-hmm. But, as marketers, particularly digital marketers, storytelling with data has always been something that's really important. And so, we've all felt it, in different ways, but, all of our jobs, we've felt frustrated with kind of what we have in terms of like, the data, AI visibility, telling stories. Talk a little bit about, the frustrations that you've felt with the lack of data.
Yeah. I think that the biggest problem is decision-making confidence. And every part of our work, all we're trying to do is get people who are going to make a decision to feel comfortable with the decision that they're going to make. So for us as marketers who need to engage with clients and help them recognize the opportunity that's on the table, we have to be able to tell a story about the impact of the work that we do. And sometimes that's not enough, because is that the same industry as the client that we're talking to? Or has that been proven out, so many times over? And every case is a little bit unique. But what we're learning is that there is this abundance of data available to us, because every single time we prompt large language models, we get a response. And every single one of those responses can be data. And so we have a lot more at our fingertips today than we've had historically, because we didn't have the ability to generate an answer from a large language model. And so there's some real unique opportunities that we're thinking about capitalizing on and actually capitalizing on, so that we can bring the best and I would say next practices to our clients' strategy. Across their marketing stack. It's touching everything.
Yeah. I would say, like, for me personally, one of the things that has frustrated me in terms of like the tools available to us, has been transparency as far as like, okay, like, but where are you getting these numbers from? And, kind of, you see AI visibility or AI tracking, AI ranking, whatever, like, what does that actually mean? And so, Kayleigh, I know that you oftentimes are in client calls and having to sort of navigate those conversations about, well, here's a question that I've heard from clients is like, what is AI saying about my business? It's a good question, but it's a very, there's not like just an answer to like, this is the answer. And so, I feel like me personally, and I'll let you, talk a little bit about it as well, but, that's kind of challenging to kind of have that conversation and try to explain to people, well, what is AI saying about my business with, this sort of lack of access to good data?
I think that maybe what people don't understand too is the variation of answers, and kind of to Will's point about our heavy usage of LLMs and understanding LLMs is seeing all of those experiments and how those outputs can always be a little bit different. And I think that's going to get even more steered by the user asking the questions in the future. So not even just the content that people have put out about themselves, but what the person looking at that content is typically looking for. That's going to steer things. And so it's hard to say what is it saying about
Yeah,
your business in a blanket answer. But the key part there is to be giving it good things to say, right?
totally.
Well, also, I think a big part is understanding what are people going to ask, and so there's a
Hmm.
predictive nature to that. Like, what are people going to ask? Like, what are people asking now? We have some visibility of that, but what are they going to ask next week when, the new model comes out and everything's changed? They're going to have a different question. So we should be always thinking about what those questions are, and then more specific about who it is that we care about, who's asking. Because I mean, for instance, I had a guy who's in advanced manufacturing who's, I was just saying, hey, I guess you probably searched ChatGPT for AI SEO agencies that work with manufacturers. And he was like, no, I didn't. I just searched for, who's an agency that does AI SEO. I'm in manufacturing, and it said Exponent 21 works with manufacturers. So his large language model knew he was a manufacturer and answered his question appropriately. The better we track, the better the data is going to be. Because if we track broadly, questions that aren't necessarily industry specific, we're getting sort of a loose snapshot of our visibility in large language models. When we get narrow, we're getting a better snapshot of what our would-be customers are seeing. And we can leverage that data in big ways. And we can think about what prompts we put into large language models that real people are actually going to be searching for, that we want to show up for. And if we're showing up when we do the check, it's generally a good sign. But it should also show up in the numbers. It should show up in the number of leads that are coming through, and are they qualified leads, and are they actually saying yes to the service that you have to offer? So I think that there is definitely a conversation around quality data, but I think it's up to us to figure out how do we capture quality data and how do we allow that to serve the client at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that is kind of a good segue into what I really wanted to talk to you about, which is Carl. And I'm not talking about a guy named Carl. This is an internal tool that we've been building uh, for the exact reason of what you laid out, is like, it's quality data. We couldn't find it. So we said, well, let's build something.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's a very complex universe that we're building here. But what is Carl?
What is Carl? Carl is the Cognitive AI Ranking Lab. Interesting thing is that was an acronym that needed to be built to fit with the Carl brand that was designed for something else. Won't get into that, but the brand made sense for a lot of reasons, and the acronym made sense for a lot of reasons. But when we first started it, it wasn't yet an actual research lab. It was more of a suite of applications that would help us to speed up our go-to-market strategy for ourselves and for our clients. And so it started out as software that enabled us to be able to move faster and to be able to do it with more precision, and to move away from cookie cutter software that's designed to work with everybody, that takes a lot of customization and tailoring to get it to do what you need it to do. At the end of the day, it made more sense for us just to build that out. But in the course of building out that suite and thinking about what our actual model is, what does it look like to be optimizing for next practices? And I'll say that a lot, as opposed to best practices, because including that predictive component, the lab comes into play because we can manufacture data. We can actually prompt large language models across a wide variety of topics across industries that matter to us, that matter to the United States, that matter to the markets that we serve, and begin analyzing that data and capturing these point in time analyses, and analyzing them over time, analyzing them as the models change, analyzing them more importantly, I think, against the hypotheses that we've established as our research suggests, evidence suggests that these things should be true. Let's go actually test those theories against the multitude of prompt responses that we've gathered and see if they play out. And so we've been able to do that for some things. And that's where I'm really excited about being on the cutting edge and being able to deliver the most value to our clients, because tomorrow is going to be different from today. And if we try to pretend like it's not, we're already behind. And that's like an anxiety point for me, and it's what we're responding to. But I think that predictive nature and the pace of change is something that has to be baked into what we're building. And so that research is going to be pivotal for us to have a current model every single day that's up to date based on what we understand to be true. Is it going to, be a real time thing? Probably not. But that's the goal at the end of the day.
So can you talk a little bit about, we mentioned earlier, AI responses it's a very personalized thing. So depending on who you are, if you're a manufacturer, it might show you, results of, a company that works with other manufacturers, and Kayleigh might ask the same question and get a completely different answer. So
Which, like, good.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like,
totally.
that's a
I
good
mean,
thing.
it is a good thing, and it works as it's designed to, which is, to be your helpful personal assistant. But when it comes to what we do as marketers, and we'll say it again, quality data, like how do we account for those two scenarios where Kayleigh asks a question and, so you ask a question and you're looking for the same thing, but you ask it totally different. And so how does that impact kind of the data that we're seeing?
So the insights the early insights that I've gathered from the first few research passes on the data that we have already, one of the things that's interesting is that when AI assembles an answer to your prompt, it's not going out there and looking at an index of data and trying to decide what information to show you. It's quite literally architecting a response. And so when that happens, one of the very first things that happen is it stops and says, all right, this question is asked by a non-expert, so it's not the best question to answer. So let's come up with a shadow prompt that we really should answer. And that shadow prompt is authored by a would-be expert that can, know what to ask, essentially. And that's going to improve the quality of the output for the user. That's how it is being more helpful at the end of the day. But on top of that, it's also going to say, well, what's the next question going to be that they're going to ask? And what's the question after that they're going to ask? And so, all of that goes into formulating the answer. Other things are true, like, well, AI likes to give people facts. Well, we know that if AI requires more than 2 sentences to explain a fact to a reader, it's going to exclude that fact because that's too much compute. So there's all these different layers of consideration that go into what that model looks like. And maybe I'm losing sight of what the question is, but we have to make sure that we're thinking in that predictive nature. So the better we can be on the strategy angle, so the better we can think about who our would-be customers are, who do we really want to work with. If we're not getting down to that level of what are they asking, we're not going to be able to track what we need to know. And what I will say is, like, what do we care about when we're measuring where do we show up? I would say to any business, B2B or B2C, B2G, anything, we capitalize on points of transition. Okay, a new person comes into a role, they don't know how to do a thing. Okay, change happens in an organization. The person who's in that existing role doesn't know how to do a thing. Everybody is going to ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity to ask questions about how to do the next part of their job that they don't know how to do. Every one of those questions is an opportunity for us to capitalize on and insert ourselves. And it's a big onus, but that's what gathering the data is for. It's so we can have some insight into what people are searching and to how AI assembles the answer at the end of the day, so that we can tune our content to be more favorable to be picked up.
Much to your point, Will, about like the further question, the compute of it all too, where anybody who has worked with an LLM might see this too, is chat gives you an answer, right? And then it says, do you want me to do X, Y, Z? Do you want me to look up more? Should I do this? It's not going to do that right away because of like the compute power, but it's already being predictive. So it's kind of one of those things where we're just thinking like the referral agent. And that's what makes us good at marketing.
Yeah. So Carl is a research lab. It collects data. It provides us with the strategic insights that we need. It's a lot more than that. So, like, where do you see this going from here?
Well, I think there's 3 main components to it, maybe even 4 main components to it. One is the strategy layer. So that's all the insights that we bring to the table, and all of the insights that come from the research that we do. So there's the lab, there's the foundational sort of macro strategy, and subsequent micro strategies that come out of it. Then there's the software component. That's the execution layer. That's how we properly communicate to a client all the different facets that are required to be thought about to be successful in this work. So that's not actually part of Carl for us, but it is part of the process to onboarding a client. But then there's the management piece, there's the optimization piece, there's the writing piece. So there's that whole suite of tools that we are building, are refining, are adding to, so that we can constantly be better. Then there's the actual model itself. So the model is that sort of evolving understanding of what good looks like, what excellent looks like, what next practices look like. That can either be serving our systems, or if we're allowing that software to be purchased by other people, licensing that, we can license the model as an API access sort of thing. And then I think the fourth opportunity that's available to us is as actually selling insights. So as we're doing this predictive work and looking to understand what future questions people are going to be asking, there is a tremendous amount of value in a company getting ahead of the curve. If you know that this question is going to start to be asked by everybody, answer it now before your competitors do, and get a lock-in on the large language models from a trust and authority perspective, because you're going to get a huge leap ahead of folks. And if you nurture that continuously, you can maintain a lead, and it might be the game changer for that business. So I think those are the four main components that I see evolving, and that all move at different paces, but we aim to be able to serve businesses that want to grow, and everything we're doing is tailored to being able to serve those outcomes.
So you mentioned licensing in there, and I'm curious, how big of a motivation for diving into building our own suite of tools essentially was the licensing fees that we see from a lot of these SaaS companies that are jacking their prices up to astronomical values. And then what exactly are you showing me?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of dynamism in where cost resides right now. You've got the expertise, it costs something, the strategy. You've got the software itself, which is just the operational components that you interface with. And then there's the compute. So when you produce something, when you optimize something, that's taking compute of some kind, if it's scraping, if it's optimizing, if it's using the large language model. That piece can be tuned within a system, so you can tailor how much compute's being used to serve up a response, but you might need more for certain steps of a process. So it's really difficult, I would say, to quantify that part, because it really depends on what you want AI to do for you versus what you want people to do for you. But what I have found is that software as a service, by and large, has been designed to serve the masses, and it requires a lot of customization at the user level to be able to serve that user, that business's purposes. And there's extra cost associated with that, and a lot of businesses aren't calculating that. And then you have the compute aspect, and how much does it cost to gather the data or to do the thing in the background that's required. And what we're seeing is our companies are either overinflating the value of their software and charging too much for that, or they're way over, adding margin to the compute costs so that they can either pay for the software build or, justify whatever it is they're charging. Owning software is a lot more economical now. Now we can build it, so it's a little bit more economical for us than for other people. But when you can make software do exactly what you need it to do, and with consistency, that's where scale comes in.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, the more clients that we talk to these days, particularly the bigger enterprise clients, it seems like the conversation always shifts to, can you build us something of our own, versus the traditional marketing conversations we have. It's instead of what are you guys going to do to help me with marketing, to what can you guys make me that can help me with marketing. And we've certainly started to go down that rabbit hole with a couple of clients, but just more generally speaking, do you think that do you see that trend continuing even for like the medium to small size businesses being able to build whatever, suits their business?
I think if we've done a good job at building what we're building, then our clients shouldn't want to build their own. Partly because when you build something, you have to maintain it, and the model's changing, and you're either tying into our API so that you get the best of all of it, your software combined with our model, which might really work for some businesses that have some very unique workflows and that want all this extra stuff to come out of the system. But if it's not maintained, it will become a monolith. And so you're paying to develop something which requires discovery, it requires development time. And then when you've built it, you still have to refine the engineering model to be able to produce the output that you want. You have to do that no matter what. And so why not cut out the time? The time is, I think, the biggest enemy. Cut out the build time and just go straight to what do we want to get out of this system? Leverage the tools that exist, leverage the model that exists. And the sooner we can publish content, the sooner we can have an impact, the sooner we can get ahead of your competition, the more upside we can deliver. And so, I mean, I literally just had this conversation with a client just before this interview. And I'll tell you, presented with the option to own something that you must maintain, that you have to also pay another license to be able to make sure that you've got the most up-to-date insights, and you have a delay to be able to get there. It's not as attractive as being able to go right to, let's tune the model, let's get the content produced and published, and ride the wave of that and think about what comes next. In the conversation I had, that was very much the direction that they leaned in. But it's not up to me to decide that. If there is, again, a case to go with option A and build something, if there's a good case for that, we can help you with that. And I think maybe there's a world where we're doing a little bit of both, where we're actually creating a service line where we're delivering right away, but also thinking about what their future needs are, or like what website are you building, or what new systems are you considering implementing. Those aren't not factors that are worthy of consideration. They're very much necessary for us to develop a great strategy.
Mm-hmm. So kind of just a case-by-case basis.
I think so. And cost is going to be a big driver for all of it at the end of the day.
I think this goes back to a lot of what we talked about with Kyriako in episode 1 too, about like the models constantly changing, that upkeep, and really knowing what you want to invest in the tool for, like what's going to be the thing that makes the difference in your industry, and taking that time. I think that discovery piece is going to be more and more important for businesses in the future as all of these tools develop, to see how Carl or whatever platform you're thinking about, what that SaaS can actually do for you in terms of output. Because there's a lot of great data input, Yeah.
Well, it's certainly exciting, like to be able to build exactly what you need for a particular use case. The exciting part is that like you don't need, the brainiac developers anymore these days. Like I know we've got some on our team that are helping us, but
until something breaks.
Well,
so I think that's what Will's saying with that, like upkeep is it's like, yeah, sure, you can build Rome in a day. What happens when Rome has a bug? Well, you're going to want a partner.
There's the, I think the speed component is the biggest piece. And I think everybody's going to ultimately decide based on that. But I think nobody should be rushed into a decision. I think the worst thing that you can do is choose the wrong thing and go down a path that doesn't serve you. And so the discovery piece, going back to that, I think is the most important part, because it gives you multiple pathways to take. And you can take a couple of pathways, in parallel so that you get the best outcomes. But the speedier you make the decision, the less confident stakeholders are going to be in moving forward with that. So I'd much rather have many conversations. And part of the reason for us to build our own proposal software is so that we can actually show people what matters most and make sure that they have comprehended that, and they don't lack clarity about what they're getting or what they're going to get out of it. It's just a matter of, okay, I understand now I need to make decisions about what I'm going to buy and how we're going to move forward.
Yeah. I think we could probably sit here and talk about Carl all day long, and we certainly will talk about Carl on future episodes as we continue.
I already talk about Carl all day long.
Well, we know that. We know that all too well, Will. But I do kind of want to, bring this to a close a little bit. So I kind of know the answer to this question, but, so we've got Carl, intelligence into, our content creation software, into our content optimization. It goes all through, the entire run. Where do you see this going? Like where do you see a ceiling on Carl? Is it meant to be contained kind of like
I don't want to build more than is necessary.
Yeah.
My take on software now is if you build software for yourself, build it to the spec, get it where you need it to be, recognize that's a foundation to build off of. But don't go adding features that you don't need because those features are going to need maintenance. Fortunately, with the tools we have now, we can actually see what things we build are actually getting used. And so we know whether what we've built is serving the user. And so there's always going to be that refinement aspect of either introducing new features, taking features away, streamlining processes so you're not spending too much time on steps that just either AI can do that or whatever else. So I would say that I don't have another piece of the Carl suite that's going to get added in anytime soon. Well, the content management system, that would be the layer that is missing that we didn't talk about. And that really moves us toward entity-based content, which is thinking about FAQs or people or locations or, kind of different types of content that we can catalog and serve up to customers in a more dynamic and maybe even personalized way based on what we know about them. Mm-hmm. We're able to do a lot of that stuff now. So I think what I can tell you is that the sky's the limit. You could do whatever you want. And if it serves our customers, we're going to introduce it. But I also don't want to spend all my time developing Carl. I have some other things that I want to work on.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Carl's a growing boy.
Yeah, he is a grown boy.
Not a man quite yet.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's leave it there. This was fun. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see what the future has for Carl and the Exponent 21 crew.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Nice.